So the topic that I chose to focus on for my presentation is privacy and surveillance. So issues of privacy and surveillance are becoming increasingly prevalent within the information society, and with the development of mobile phones, this concern has only grown. As Richard Smith states, technical design choices have turned mobile devices into tracking systems, or in other words, mobile technologies are involved in formal activities undertaken by both private and public sector organizations and horizontal surveillance conducted by citizens and customers. So this presentation will focus on one example of a top-down approach to surveillance, stingray technologies. Stingrays, as they are more commonly known, pretend to be telecommunications towers, tricking devices into connecting with and sharing your phone's unique identifier, known as an IMSI, without your knowledge. As Matthew Brega explains, stingrays identify and collect information, and phone calls as well as text messages can be intercepted. In fact, the Journal of the American Statistical Association published a study concluding that a predictive policing algorithm outperformed humans in indicating whether crime would occur. So International mobile subscriber identities are important because they siphon data from all of the phones in an area, many of which are not the subjects of an investigation. Stingrays are used by law enforcement agencies in order to track down important information on suspects in investigations, and while not as prevalent in Canada as in the United States, they have already been confirmed by the RCMP in Toronto and are suspected in Vancouver. It is also impossible for most cell phone users to identify whether or not stingrays are being used, making it a major cause for concern surrounding privacy and an issue of ethics. In addition to this, there is a lack of reassurance for the public that the technology is being used lawfully and with the attention to the rights of the public. As the article Expanding Mobile and Location-Based Surveillance states, consumers readily exchange units of personal information to obtain goods, services, and information on their mobile devices. Kevin McQuiggan is also quick to point out that we are forced to trust authorities with this technology, as the trade-off is essentially better production. It is important to note that information on stingrays tends to come from public advocacy organizations due to the secrecy of law enforcement, and this focus on public interests only intensifies the concern for privacy and security. So the impact or the prevalence of stingray technologies became an area of contention in Vancouver when in 2015, according to Jordan Omand, the Vancouver Police Department refused a Freedom of Information request inquiring about stingray surveillance, claiming that divulging documents on the topic could compromise the effectiveness of the force's investigation techniques. In May 2016, the first documented use of stingray technology was found in Toronto, which increases the need for more Vancouverites to be concerned with accountability measures being put in place. The VPD's unwillingness to answer questions pertaining to stingrays is particularly alarming, as oversight is incredibly important. The reality is that law enforcement officers are normal human beings and require supervision just as any other individual does. One could even argue more so given the security under which this personal information needs to be handled. So, some ways that we're dealing with stingrays are with nonprofit advocacy agencies, and so Open Media is an example of one of these. And they've launched a campaign in order to stop stingray surveillance. In March 2016, Open Media filed a complaint with Daniel Thériault, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, prompting the Commissioner to launch an investigation. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association has also called for greater accountability and transparency with the issues of these devices so that they can be used with proper judicial approval after a warrant process. However, regardless of these advocates, an important remark that the CCLA makes is that the suppliers of these devices have asked police forces to sign non-disclosure agreements as a condition of their purchase. So vendors of these technologies have power over what the public knows. Consequently, what is important to take away from this is that it's important for us as consumers to be aware of technologies like stingrays, as it affects the lives of every one of us. So your cell phone may be tapped without your knowledge, impacting your right to privacy and security.